Thank you, and welcome to Mental Health Through Mental Science. I'm going to speak now on the birth and death of limitation. When I was a child, I recall one of our neighbors had a dog they kept staked out in the vacant lot next door to their home. The dog was on a long chain, maybe 25 or 30 feet long. It lived for many years. I think it lived until it was around 12 or 14 years of age. Every morning, the woman would take the dog out and tie the chain to the stake, and every evening, she would go out and bring it in, and it would stay tied out in the vacant lot all day. It was a very mean dog. I think I kind of understand that. If you lived your life on the end of a 25-foot chain, you'd probably be mean too. But that dog spent the entire 12 or 14 years, whatever it was, on that chain. And that was the only existence that it knew. Now, within that length of that chain, of course, it was free to do whatever it wanted to do. All the children in the neighborhood knew exactly how long the chain was and just how far the dog could go. And they knew that the dog was ineffective 1 inch past the length of the chain because he couldn't function outside of that. Many times in recent years, the memory of that dog has come back to me as I watch people live their lives, and as I reflected on the first years of my life. I realized that I was the dog on the chain, and I realize in watching people around me now that a tragic percentage of people live their lives exactly in that manner. They don't think they do, because they see themselves as mobile beings. They see themselves as mobile beings because they see themselves as physical beings. They don't, as I have covered in previous talks, recognize themselves to be mental beings or appraise and evaluate themselves as mental beings. But assuming that they are physical beings, an individual believes that he changes himself as he changes himself physically. Probably this explains why one of our top industries is the cosmetic industry, and why we are so over-concerned with styles of clothes, etc. The frustrations of a lack of change within seem to promote an exaggerated effort at change without. Evaluating ourselves as physical beings, but of course realize that this evaluation takes place mentally, of course. Where else? So according to what we are believing about ourselves in mind, as we believe ourselves to be physical beings, then we are guilty of ignorance, that is, again, ignoring the truth of our being, ignoring that the abstract aspect of our being is the reality of our being, that the tangible, the physical, is not the reality of our being. Just for a moment, let us say when we make our transition, then every atom of what our body is remains intact. But it certainly is non-functioning because we are not occupying that body and we are not functioning in it, expressing through it. The body of itself, then, is a non-entity. It is not a being at all. Without the occupation of that body by the individual, the body is nothing. It can't even catch cold. it can't get sick. It can't do anything because it never was the doer. It never was the doer because it never was the reality and is not the reality now. But as we see ourselves as physical beings only, instead of mental, abstract beings expressing within and through and as a body, then we restrict ourselves to that extent. Then when we think in terms of our life, we think only in terms of the life of our body. When we think in terms of harming ourselves, we think only in terms of harming ourselves physically. We don't think in terms of mental harms, emotional harms. If we were to pay even a small percentage of the attention to our mental health that we devote to our physical health, we probably could eliminate the majority of ailments that the human race is suffering from at present. With our concern for ourselves as mental beings, as physical beings, we think, then we devote all of our attention to surviving at a physical level only. Then as we feel that we have our physical survival taken care of, then we feel we have accomplished our goal. So the great goal from the outset is to find a way to provide for the body. That is, to feed it, care for it, clothe it, shelter it, and satisfy its needs. We set it up as an entity so that even when it gets sick, we treat it as though it has a will of its own and that it imposed this sickness upon itself, divorcing it from ourselves and not accepting any responsibility for the sickness. We assume that it has been done to us. We treat the body as an entity, as a being. We identify ourselves with it. When we're asked to describe ourselves, we describe ourselves physically because that's the way we think about ourselves. Then if we're thinking only in terms of our survival, as a physical survival, then it only becomes necessary to find the ways and means to see to it that the body survives. Well, all that requires then is shelter and clothing and food, and, of course, the provision for the other physical necessities. Then we have as our motivation to develop our true selves only to a point where we are capable then of accounting for our physical survival. So as our motivation for our self-development being the care of our physical being, then we develop ourselves creatively, intellectually, mentally, only to the extent that is necessary to see to it that we survive physically, that we are protected physically and cared for physically. The fact that we have mental and emotional disturbances as a result of this along the way, we seem much too willing to ignore. We don't seem nearly as concerned over emotional conflicts and disturbances. Oh, we're concerned as long as they're upsetting us and making us uncomfortable, but then just as fast as somebody will write us a prescription that we can fill and take and nullify or anesthetize ourselves so that we don't have to experience the uncomfortable emotion, then we feel we have fixed the problem. We're only concerned with our inner tensions because they give us headaches. But as soon as we watch a television commercial and hear about all of the magic aspirins that are being invented in the chemical laboratories these days, then we run down and buy whatever the latest is and the best always being the fastest acting, and quick get rid of the pain without ever even the slightest inquiry as to where the pain comes from, because we're not concerned with that. We're only concerned with our physical comfort and well-being. Anytime we receive any other kind of disturbance, all we want to do is feel good. And as long as we're able to feel good, then we call that good. Anything that we can't feel, we're unwilling to recognize as even existing. So the more sophisticated our ways become of anesthetizing our senses, so that we can't really see the trouble that we're in, emotionally and mentally, the more we measure it as progress. The more we are concerned about our physical well-being, it seems the less concerned we are about our lack of development of ourselves in our true being. As soon as we have developed our talents and our capacities to a sufficient level to provide whatever the income is necessary to take care of our body needs, then we stop developing our creative abilities, our talents, our potential. The average person, I would suspect, shuts his potential off probably somewhere between the age of 25 and 30. The developing that most people do after the age of 30 probably wouldn't fill a spiritual thimble if there would be such a measurement, because the individual is not interested in developing beyond the point at which he is able to care for himself physically. He's not interested because he doesn't think of himself as being a mental or spiritual being in need of a continuous expansion and development. He believes that as long as he has found a way to pay the rent and buy the clothes and supply the food, that he has fulfilled all of his needs. If he is unable to do this out in the competitive world, the Tom Swift world of dog eat dog, then he just finds some way to tough it out and compensate for not being able to do it until he can reach the age of 65 and then sit down on his Social Security for the rest of his years while he breathes in and out, taking great pride every time he adds a candle to his birthday cake, because he is much more concerned with how long he lives than he is with how well he lives while he's here. Longevity seems to have quite a premium in our set of values, when in truth, how long we are here not only is secondary, it is of no importance at all. It's the quality of living and the extent of living that we have and enjoy, experience and express while we are here, not how long we are here that is important.